How are you? This is Chris from DS6 Mac, and I'm with
Dave from Mountain Wolf Games.
And we are back with another top 5 list. And we are talking about
Top 5 roll, flip, or right.
basically roll slash flip. I think it's either roll and right, or to flip and right with a card. But the point is there's some drawing to be done.
Yes.
These are games that uses pads and either felt pens or pencils and little tearaway pieces of paper, right?
Yeah.
You call it roll and right, but now we're using cards, so now they're flip and right. So these are our top 5 flip and right, roll and rights. Do you actually have enough of these to make a list?
Oh, yeah.
So do I.
They're right up there.
When I looked and realized I had a list long enough for it, I was like, holy crap. 3 years ago, I hated this genre.
I did too. But now I love it because it's quick.
Yeah.
And my only dislike for the genre is when it's all used up, then what?
Yeah, that being said, we have never come even close to using these up. The ones that we get, the pads are so many, we are going to run out of ideas. We're gonna sell this game before we even get a quarter way through this pad.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we go. Here we go.
Alright, starting with number 5 is a game you've never heard of and probably has nobody else, and that's really sad because it's really fun. But it's a one-player game. It's from Grumpy Spider Games, I believe it is, and that is Pocketbook Adventures. And it's literally a book about this big, and it's a whole dungeon crawler campaign for single player. There is no dice. It is basically you are moving around this grid, you're collecting gold, you're fighting enemies, but the combat mechanic is interesting. The combat mechanic is in the book. There will be the monsters that you encounter on the page, and so harpy, goblin, mushroom, whatever. And then they'll have a little bar with a dot on it, and then they have a target. And what you do is you put your pencil on the dot, close your eyes, lift it up, and then try and hit on the target. I'm dead serious. And then wherever you hit, you will always kill the monster, but it depends on how much damage you take.
Yeah.
Very interesting mechanic. And so, it's called Pocketbook Adventure. You can fit it in the pocket, but you can play it anywhere.
Hiding here.
Sorry?
Do you have it here?
I do. Yeah, I will.
It looks so much like Rogue. Wow, where'd you find this thing?
Kickstarter.
How much it cost you?
I think it was like $12. And we're back. So that's it. Pocketbook Adventures.
These are the kind of lists I like, when you throw out something that's random.
Yep.
That is actually quite fascinating. Nicole would dig that.
Yeah.
Nicole would really dig that.
And I was right. It is Grumpy Spider Games. And yeah, like I said, here's an example of the one of the grids here. So yeah, you literally take it and you go to there, close your eyes, lift up, boom. There we go. I took 2 points of damage.
Mine's going to be a tiny controversial because I know a lot of people say this is the greatest roll and right or flip and right ever. And for me, it's okay. But it's good enough to be on this list. That's Welcome to the Moon.
Oh, okay.
There should be noted, full disclaimer, my wife loves this series.
Okay.
It is the game we've played the most.
Oh, really?
We played it a lot.
I think I sold you mine, didn't I? I sold you my extra one.
Yes, you did. It's distinctive in the fact that it's a dry erase with felt.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yep.
So it's a game that you never have to worry about it because it'll
right.
always come back to buy new felt markers if yours dry out.
Yep.
It has a campaign mode.
Yep.
And the way the game's fundamental mechanics work change depending on which new map you are. Kind of like other the tearaways where the maps are always the same. This one, there's so far there's been, I think there's a dozen different maps, and they're very. Have you played it?
Not yet. I want to.
It's very distinct. Like one of them, the first one is very, very rote. I wouldn't say boring, but it's very standard. You're crossing things off on a spaceship. When it's full, the ship breaks off. You score points. The second one uses the same flip mechanics, but now it's the ship going into orbit but it's a completely different way of using that same mechanic. And then we played a third one, which is now colony building, and it's once again uses the exact same mechanic in a completely different way. And that itself is worthy of praise.
Yep.
The issue is that so far, and we've played these games multiple times, because we've actually played the opening mission, I think, 3 times. because we wanted to show other people to play it. And learning that game and now playing these other missions, I started to realize that there are unfortunately kind of cheese strategies that work. Like on the first map, for example, there's a second row from the bottom, which is kind of like if you can't cross anything, you can cross this kind of universal row. Not realizing that universal row is actually kind of crazy powerful. And if you actually focus on that, you end up getting a massive lead. And it's shockingly how broken that is.
Yeah.
And then to make matters worse, if you're doing the campaign mode, it rewards people who've won from the previous mission. They get a little bit of an edge, which means that since then, I have not won the game once because my wife now has an entire leading advantage every single time we play. To the point that now I have not been able to win, and she's now been the lead on this campaign for 3 games straight, and I'm starting to get chaffed about it because I'm like, does this game have any form of catch-up mechanic or something to aid people that are being tremendously pulled back by this game's mechanic? Nope, at least not yet. So I'm going into this. Of course, my wife loves the game because she's the captain and she gets to make all the decisions. But here I am, like, wow, this is great. Is there gonna be a point? Right. Like that being said, I mean, I go chap ass because I'm losing, but obviously we talked about Tapestry where I literally doubled her score, and that Mercado game, Mercado de Lisboa, which we just played, where I told you have to take that, you have to intrude yourself, otherwise another player will run away. Yeah, that's what I did. I got 80 points to her 40. Yeah, or like 70 to her 30. I double her score. That was the thing. So, but I just don't like a game that rewards someone's victory. Like I had the same problem with that game, The Great Dalmudi, which is a really mean game. So mean, in fact, that the other name of this game was called Asshole. And but it's a game where you play the rounds are very, very fast. But whoever wins gets a massive edge, which means it becomes a fight to try to beat that guy for the rest of the evening, and chances are you won't. So it ends up being just a case of futility. Yeah. And so I had an anxiety attack. I hate that game so much. But yeah, welcome to the. I might change my mind if we get some more, and I'm hoping that the game, despite this variety in these missions, isn't gonna have every one of these kind of basic unrelenting flaws in each one. So that's Welcome to the Moon, a number 5.
All right, my number 4 is a new one to our collection, but definitely is a take on a game that the wife loves, which would have been Card Kingdoms of Valeria. But this one is Dice Kingdoms of Valeria.
Oh, okay.
And
we have to have carryover in this. There can't be enough roll-and rights that we don't have common ones, but we haven't yet. Yeah. So Dice Kingdoms.
Yeah, so Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. And it's a really interesting mechanic on how they did it, because basically you have your kingdom on one side, you have a map on the other side, and you can change it up from different things like winter or other things. And basically you're trying to complete routes, you're trying to kill monsters. It's got a lot going. It's got more going on for it than any roll and write I've seen before, but it takes you right to the edge of too much, and just kind of holds you there. Doesn't take you over the edge. Just kind of like, this is a lot. Yeah. But it's not too much. Yeah. And so that I kind of found intriguing. So that was my number 4. Again, newer one, Dice Kingdoms of Valeria.
Eventually, I said, one of these you have to have in your... Actually, what I'm talking about. One of these has to be on your list. It's probably number 1. My number 4 is another game I've not yet won at, but it's not bad. It's a better game than the other game just because I like the cut of its jib. I love the fact that you can download it for free if you wanted to play it, which I thought was really interesting. Rado had a fantastic playthrough. He's basically told people, download the map, and let's all play together. And you could score yourself, and you could determine whether or not you beat his score. I thought, what a brilliant thing to do! Like, let's all play this game together. I'll play the game here with the cards. You get to do things on your own thing, and that's it. And I thought, what an ingenious way of showing people how to play the game, to have them download one of the Terra maps and then have you play the game. What? I give them marks just for that marketing plan. Like, what an ingenious thing to do. But that's Isle of Cats. Explore and draw. Isle of Cats is one of my wife's all-time favorite games. It came to a point where, despite the fact that she loves Feast for Odin, I'm surprised she hasn't thrown Feast for Odin out, because anytime she's going to play a Tetromino game, she's going to play Isle of Cats. It has cats, end of list. But it has cats, and it has a Tetromino mechanic that she's really good at. This is the only game. This is now reaching up there with Lanterns, which is a game which, by the way, I finally beat Nicole at. So now suddenly it's no longer her favorite game, because I've actually beaten her, well, pretty soundly too. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, I actually got this game when she won it. I think I won the game twice now, actually. Yeah, I did. We played the game twice. I played it with her alone and I won, and then we played it as a group and I won again. So I'm like, wow, I have to, start liking this game. But with Isle of Cats, my wife has yet to lose. She has won the main game 2 or 3 times. I have said that even before the game was over, I was having issues with it, because the game claims to have several different types of win points, but it doesn't. It only has one. You get the point cards, so you put them next to you, and then you make those point cards. You can't win the game through the other 3 ways of gaining points. There's only one way to win the game, which is a little frustrating.
Yeah.
I will say Explore and Draw is a better game, because you get more options of cats to draw. Other players don't screw you as much as they do. And you don't have to worry about some of the huge swings that deal with the card drafting aspect of it. So it's definitely a better game. My wife still annihilated me and my friends, but I still say it is a better game. If Nicole's like, do you want to play Explore and Draw, or do you want to play Isle of Cats? I will pick Explore and Draw every single time, because A, you can set it up in 3 minutes, and 2, it's a faster game, and 3, mechanically, it's just a better game. So that's my number 4?
Yep.
Number 4, Isle of Cats, Explore, and Draw.
All right. My number 3 is... It's a hard one to choose because there's 2 variations of the game. Both are good.
I know what it is.
But the one has a weird mechanic to it that makes it very tricky, but by the same time it also adds a level of complexity that's interesting.
So there's 2 variations of this game.
Yep. And that's Floor Plan, the Winchester Mystery House.
Okay, that wasn't what I was thinking.
Nope. So the difference between Floor Plan and Winchester Mystery House is the Floor Plan, you're building a house room by room based on what you roll. Everybody else is building a house. Once the grid's full, the house is built. Winchester Mystery House takes it to another level and adds a second floor. But what they did with the second floor was they made it with a piece of clear plastic overlay, so that you have certain conditions where this room can, or when you're building the rooms, it has to be supported by rooms below, which now makes it really quite interesting. The only problem that comes is because it is a dry erase. When you put the plastic sheet down and you're doing something on the top floor, you sometimes smudge the floor below. And that's the one detractor of this game. It was a great idea, but the implementation lacked. So I love Floor Plan. I will pull it out all the time when it's, just...
I have heard of this game.
Yeah, it's really a good game. It's like, oh, you want to build a bush, and
do you want to build
the bush? Yeah, do you want to build a bush? No, we want to trim them. Anyways, so that's my number 3, Floor Plan, and Floor Plan Winchester Mystery House.
I've heard of Floor Plan. I haven't heard of the Winchester House. My number 3. There's a part of me that doesn't want to like this game because I'm not sure I'm liking where the franchise is going. The original game in this whole series was one of my all-time favorite games. It's fantastic. And I think they've gone off the plot a little bit. But they did make a pretty darn good roll and write, and that is Cartographers. Now, Cartographers is in the role player universe.
Oh, okay. Not the one I thought it was. Yeah,
it is a role player game. It's cartography. I thought it would be dungeon mapping, and it's not. It's like country mapping. Where you're trying to draw a map, and you're trying to surround things. You're trying to encompass ruins that get you points, and they don't get you points. They get you coins, and you get points for the largest regions that are completely encapsulated. There are certain specific point scoring, and the way the game works, it lays down like 4 point cards. So you know what you're getting points on. But you run through one round where you go through this deck. And then the deck will tell you what to draw. And at the end, you know that it's scoring on cards A and cards C.
Okay.
So you try to work to try to get those satisfied. And then the next one is going to be B and D, which means now you're trying to create a situation where B and D. And then it goes to A and D, and then it goes finally to B and C. Like it revolves through. And I think there's actually 5 rounds. I think the last turn it goes back to A. So if you set your cards right, you could potentially come back to A, and you're like, oh, now A is so much bigger, I can do this. But for example, if you're working off of a big one and then C ends, you're like, oh crap, do I finish C? And the answer is no, there's no point. You're not scoring on C anymore, so there's no point completing that part of the map. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I think, no. My wife won 2 games. I won 1 that weekend. What was the game that we played that I won? Because I'm pretty sure... Yeah, she won at Cartographers. She is really good at roll and writes. The take that mechanic is a little unusual, though. One, that there are monsters that show up, and you have to draw the monsters, and you have to try to encapsulate the monsters. Okay. The issue is, when a monster comes up, you exchange maps, and the other person draws the monster. Which means they're putting the monster on your map, and then if you want to score points on that monster, you have to surround it. And you could put that monster in a horrifically annoying position to either screw them so they can't complete something that they want to complete, or they put it somewhere else, which means you have to divert resources to surround them. This is the strangest thing. You go through this, 8 or 9 cards. And once you reach a certain time threshold, you shut the whole thing, start the whole thing over. And in the first deck, there's 1 monster. If the monster doesn't pop up, you put in 2 monsters the next turn. If it doesn't pop up, you put 3 monsters in. And you keep on putting monsters in until monsters finally show up. Which means that the statistics of not seeing a monster in a game is pretty hard, pretty low. We somehow managed it. We shuffled it the best of our abilities. We never saw a monster show up in our entire game. And that's so by the end of the last turn, there were 4 monsters in I think a 12-card deck, and it still didn't bring up a single monster. So this game's pretty high on the list, even though we have not had to take that aspect. And the other thing is that I firmly believe that you can play this game perfectly well without them. Yeah. It is not a balancing mechanic. They threw it in because they thought, well, we have to have some interaction. I go, it's a roll or draw and write. You don't. You don't need interaction. These are games that relish on low interaction. You don't need it. We've talked about all these games. Some of them are single player. Some of them have no interaction. People have no problems getting roll and writes that have no interaction. But they insisted on having this one mechanic in there, which we proved with our game that you don't need it. That is number 3, Cartographers.
All right, so my number 2. The one that I love. I'd love to pull it out, but unfortunately the collector's edition made it almost unwieldy to pull out. But I still love it. That's Railroad Inc.
Finally!
Yeah. It's an amazing game. I love it to bits. But
you got Nicole into Roll and Writes because of that game.
Oh, yeah?
By the way, who won? She did.
Yeah.
She won, and she has not stopped winning at those games.
So
I blame you.
Yep. Well, there you go. The thing I love about Railroad Inc. is it is very relaxing. There is no take that. There's no. The only thing you're competing with is points, but it's your own fault if you mess up.
Yeah.
It's your own fault in your planning. So there's no one for you to be.
Just better at spatial recognition.
Yeah, and so there's no one for you to be mad at but yourself. So it's very cathartic sometimes. It's just like, yep, I lost. I should have done that differently. Oh well.
Do you have... Because there's 2 versions of that game. That's
there's
what I thought.
4.
There's 4. I'm sorry. And then there's all the little tiny expansions. Now, what do you mean little tiny expansions? I mean they are this big.
5 days.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
We have 1 core version, and we have all of the small box expansions, because we were at Meeples and Milkshakes, and she bought them all.
Oh, I see. Which one do you guys have? Is it green, yellow, blue, or red?
Green, I think.
Okay, so you got one of the new ones.
Yeah.
Because the green and yellow have the better goal mechanics than the red and blue.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's one of the new ones.
Yeah. So that's my number 2, Railroad Inc. A very nice, relaxing board game.
Do you know what's even more relaxing?
What's that?
My number 2, which is also Railroad Inc.
There you go.
I'm surprised. Yeah, we have it at exactly the same place.
Yep.
And I'm not sure. I don't believe you own the first one, so I do believe this might be our only crossover, and it's exactly the same point. Yeah, Railroad Inc. Very, very fun game. You're drawing trains. Yep. You know, you're making things work, and it's a classic roll and write. It's a roll and write game. It's probably, I would almost call it iconic by this point. I don't know. I think obviously there's one better, but I don't think there's one that more defines the genre more than Railroad Inc.
No, exactly. They did it right, and the part that I love is that it's right erase. So it means I'm not wasting a whole bunch of paper, and I'm saving the environment.
Yeah,
So.
you believe that. So, yeah, so not much to talk about because it's exactly the same position, exact same game, and that is number 2, Railroad Inc. Number 1.
All right.
Got me again. Good for you.
So, coming in at number 1 is probably going to be controversial. You're just going to be like, what? And I like this game, but the roll and write version of it is such a much better implementation just because it is such an aged game now. And that is Alhambra roll and write.
Alhambra has a roll and write?
Alhambra has a roll and write.
When the hell do they make a roll and write? Because Nicole likes Alhambra so much that she won't let me get rid of it.
Yeah, it's right there. It's the orange one right above Dork Tower.
Okay, where's Dork Tower?
Dork Tower is right above the red one that says Pirates. All my roll and writes are right there.
Okay, so orange,
Yeah.
the orange Alhambra.
Yeah.
Orange Alhambra.
So the beauty of this one is you roll, and then the grid tells you, you roll a yellow and blue die, and then the grid tells you which ones you can get.
I gotta write that down because Nicole's gonna make me buy it when I get home.
Oh yes, and it's such a better implementation of Alhambra I found, and it's quick setup. It's easy to explain. That's the biggest thing. It's easy to explain.
The other good thing about these games is none of them are expensive.
No,
except my first one is actually not terribly cheap. But
yeah. So like the original Alhambra is hard to it's a lot of setup, and people are just like, why are the different colored monies? It doesn't make any sense. Alhambra Roll and Write does away with that. It's just streamlined. It's quick. It's fun. Number 1, Alhambra Roll and Write.
Wow.
Get it.
So, yep, Railroad Inc. was the only carryover. I'm actually not surprised because I do believe most of these games we haven't played. But I do know we both have played Railroad Inc., so I knew that was going to be our carryover. I thought there'd be another one. My number 1, when talking about games that have such massive setups and massive lengths, sometimes you're like, let's just play the roll and write. It's just easier.
Yep.
And I think of Terraform.
Oh, I know where you're going with this one. This is going to be Dinosaur World.
So talking about Terraforming Mars. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't Terraforming Mars have a roll and write? But they do have a card-based game. They do have a card-based game that takes as long as the main game. Mm-hmm. I love Ares Expedition. But why? It's like, wow, you want to play Ares Expedition, Terraforming Mars? My wife's response is, there's no point. Might as well play the big one because the other one takes almost as long. Yeah, here recently that they announced a whole bunch of expansions for just Ares Expedition. And guess what they added? A cooperative version. So I've been talking to death about what Terraforming Mars needs is a cooperative expansion. But the game is so sold on its free market, capitalism model that they can never work with that. But Ares Expedition, apparently they will. So there is now a cooperative expansion for Ares Expedition. Yep. Now, I don't mind Ares Expedition. From a footprint standpoint, yes, it is slightly smaller and it is slightly shorter. And that's because we have the big box Terraforming Mars. We go hardcore. We have all these freaking people, so I can understand that. But point is, I can see why you'd want it. Like, if they made a roll and write of Terraforming Mars, that game we would probably get, because it hopefully encapsulates all Terraforming Mars in a very small package. This game does that as well. And I lied. It is Dinosaur Island Raw and Right. Now, Dinosaur Island is a fantastic game, one of my all-time favorites. It has a footprint that would make putting it on this table an issue. It is massive. I think we got the largest table we could get so we could play that game.
For Dinosaur Island, Raw and Right?
No, for Dinosaur Island.
Oh, yeah. You can fit Dinosaur Island on this table, okay.
Yeah. Now, it should be noted that they do have a card version, Duelosaur Island, which is a 2-player version. And that's the same issue with Ares Expedition, where, hey, you want to play Duelosaur Island? She's like, no, let's just play Dinosaur Island. But Raw and Right takes almost every aspect of Dinosaur Island and somehow manages to successfully dilute it down into this type of format and does it successfully. And every aspect of the game, like the DNA is now controlled through pencil, right? Your base is controlled through pencil. You actually have, I think you actually have 2 Terrapads, because knowing a game that's as huge as as Dinosaur Island, of course they'd make the roll and write 2 pads instead of 1, because they have to be bigger than everybody else.
Nope, because Valerian Dice Kingdoms is 2 pads.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Side by side.
So you have 2 pads, and you still have those cool colored numbered dice. And you're getting paddocks, and you're drawing your paddock on there, and you get really neat shapes. And yeah, it's neat because the cool, funky, large day glow multi-symbol dice that's very iconic for Dinosaur Island is in this game. It has a larger mechanic. So before you would use meeples to do things here. This one you don't have to worry about. They took the meeples out. I think they took the phase 2 out, so just phase 1 and phase 3. You get DNA, you get stuff, and then you spend time. And so it still has the same thing where you spend a good chunk of the game us interacting with the resources, and they're okay, everyone, play, and then we all just sit for 5 minutes drawing and doing stuff for 5 minutes. And then after that, we move on to the next round, we continue that. When it comes to large roll and writes, this is probably one of the bigger ones. You mentioned an alternative. But it is a game that I'm like, no, if we're traveling, maybe we'll take that, and then we get a chance to play Dinosaur Island on the road.
Yeah.
But that is my number 1 choice, Dinosaur Island Raw and Right. You haven't played this game, have you?
No, it's actually what I was turning around to look for. It's around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I never thought I'd be liking the genre. Now, in defense, it's still not my favorite. I mean, if someone says you have time, if we have time for the big Dinosaur Island, I'll go for it. My issue is whether or not we can justify playing Dinosaur World, because we still like Dinosaur Island. But, like, do you want to play Dinosaur World? Oh, okay. Do you want to play Dinosaur Island? It's like, we have 4 dinosaur games. Eventually, we'll only have 1.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a question of what's going to happen. But anyway, that's been my list. I'll go through it real quickly again. My number 5, Welcome to the Moon. Number 4, Isle of Cats, Explore and Draw. Number 3, Cartographers. Number 2, Railroad Inc. And number 1, Dinosaur Island Raw and Right.
My number 4 is Pocketbook Adventures. Number 4 is Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. Number 3 is Floor Plan or Winchester Mystery Manor. And Railroad Inc. at number 2. And Alhambra Roll and Write at number 1.
Which I'm going to check the moment I get home. So that's it.
I've been Dave.
And I have been Chris. And remember, the rules are just a suggestion.
Play the game how you want to play it.